The handcuffs clicked shut with a metallic snap that seemed louder than the traffic rolling down the highway. Travelers pumping gas glanced over briefly, then returned to their routines. In small Texas towns, people learned long ago not to stare when trouble arrived. Trouble had arrived anyway. Commander Marcus Sterling stood beside a silver rental sedan at a gas station outside a fading community called Iron Ridge. At 52, he carried himself with the quiet confidence earned through decades of military service. His navy dress uniform was perfectly pressed despite the oppressive heat. Rows of ribbons rested across his chest. A small gold insignia reflected the late afternoon sunlight. He was not there on official business. He was traveling to attend the funeral of a retired Navy mentor who had once saved his life. The Texas air felt thick enough to touch. Waves of heat danced above the pavement. Marcus paid little attention to the weather. He had endured harsher conditions across deserts, oceans, and conflict zones. He picked up a bottle of water and turned toward the convenience store entrance. That was when a sheriff's cruiser slid into the parking lot. Gravel scattered beneath its tires. The vehicle stopped at an angle that blocked Marcus from leaving. The driver's door opened. Deputy Travis Cole stepped out with the swagger of a man accustomed to controlling every room he entered. Cole studied the uniform from head to toe. A crooked smile spread across his face. He approached slowly, enjoying the attention from nearby customers. "That's quite a costume," he said. Marcus remained calm. "It's not a costume, Deputy. I'm a commander in the United States Navy." The deputy laughed loudly. His younger partner, Officer Ethan Brooks, stayed inside the cruiser, watching nervously. "Funny," Cole replied. "You don't look like the kind of officer I expected." Marcus recognized the insult hidden beneath the words. He had heard similar remarks throughout his career. Some came from enemies overseas. Others came from people who should have known better. "I'm just passing through," Marcus said. "I'd appreciate being left alone." Instead, Cole stepped closer. His eyes lingered on the medals and insignia. Then he reached toward Marcus's chest. Marcus intercepted the movement immediately. He caught the deputy's wrist and pushed it away. "Do not touch the uniform," he said. The parking lot fell silent. Cole jerked his arm back as anger flooded his face. The brief embarrassment of being corrected in public transformed into something uglier. "You just assaulted an officer," he snapped. "No," Marcus answered evenly. "I prevented you from disrespecting federal property." The deputy's pride could not tolerate the response. He called for backup, accused Marcus of impersonating an officer, and refused repeated requests to verify his military identification. Marcus considered his options carefully. He possessed the training to end the confrontation within seconds. Years of special operations experience had prepared him for far more dangerous situations. Yet fighting would dishonor everything he represented. Slowly, he placed his hands against the hot metal of the rental car. The handcuffs went on tighter than necessary. Officer Brooks watched uneasily from several feet away. Unlike his partner, he seemed uncertain. As Marcus was pushed toward the cruiser, he noticed something. Brooks avoided eye contact. Fear flickered across the young officer's face. Marcus had spent a lifetime reading people. The rookie was hiding something. The ride to the county jail began under a cloudless Texas sky. Behind the cruiser windows, the sun was setting in streaks of orange and gold. Ahead waited a small sheriff's department that believed it had arrested an ordinary traveler. Before midnight, everyone inside that building would discover how wrong they were. The Iron Ridge Sheriff's Department sat at the edge of town like a relic from another era. The brick building was faded by decades of sun and neglect. Inside, old ceiling fans pushed warm air through hallways that smelled of coffee, dust, and aging paperwork. Commander Marcus Sterling sat quietly in the back seat of the patrol cruiser as Deputy Travis Cole drove aggressively toward the station. Every sudden break sent a jolt through the metal cage. Marcus remained composed. Years of military training had taught him how to endure discomfort without complaint. Officer Ethan Brooks sat in the passenger seat, glancing repeatedly into the rearview mirror. Something about their prisoner disturbed him. "You ever see ribbons like that before?" Brooks finally asked. Cole snorted. "Fake decorations are easy to buy online. Guys like him live for attention." Marcus said nothing. The silence only made Brooks more uncomfortable. When they arrived, the deputy dragged Marcus through the rear entrance. Several employees looked up from their desks. Most appeared bored. A few seemed curious. "What do we have?" asked Sergeant Wayne Mercer from behind the booking counter. "Stolen valor," Cole announced proudly. "Assaulted an officer, too." Mercer raised an eyebrow. "Big catch." Marcus studied the room carefully. Habit, training, survival. He noted security cameras, exits, personnel positions, and names displayed on badges. Information mattered. Information always mattered. The booking process quickly turned humiliating. Cole emptied Marcus's pockets onto a steel table. Wallet, phone, keys, military identification, travel documents. The deputy barely looked at them. "You going to verify any of that?" Marcus asked. "Don't tell me how to do my job," Cole replied. He tossed the identification card aside. Marcus felt frustration rising, but controlled it. His mentor, Master Chief Robert Langford, used to say that character revealed itself most clearly under pressure. Marcus repeated those words silently. Then things became worse. Cole picked up the uniform jacket. "Expensive costume," he said. His fingers moved toward the gold Naval Special Warfare insignia attached above the ribbons. Marcus immediately straightened. "Don't." The single word carried enough authority to silence the room. For a brief second, even Cole hesitated. Then pride took over. Using a pocket knife, he pried the insignia loose. The metal pin struck the floor with a sharp clink. The sound hit Marcus harder than the handcuffs had. That insignia represented decades of sacrifice. Friends lost, missions survived, promises kept. It was not decoration, it was history. Officer Brooks quickly bent down and picked up the insignia. Unlike Cole, he handled it carefully. Their eyes met. For the first time, Brooks looked genuinely ashamed. "Sorry," he whispered. Marcus gave no response. He simply stared at Deputy Cole. "Run my fingerprints," Marcus said. "Check the federal database. You still have time to fix this." Cole laughed. "You keep making threats." "It's not a threat, it's advice." The deputy ignored him. Minutes later, Marcus found himself locked inside a holding cell with a broken air conditioner. The temperature felt unbearable. Most people would have shouted, complained, demanded a lawyer. Marcus sat quietly on the metal bench. He closed his eyes and waited. Hours passed. Outside the cell, conversations drifted through the hallway. Phones rang, deputies joked, television noise echoed from a break room. Near midnight, Officer Brooks appeared. The young officer looked exhausted. "Deputy Cole went home," he said quietly. "You get one phone call." Marcus stood. "Thank you." Brooks unlocked the cell. They walked to a wall-mounted telephone. "5 minutes," Brooks said. Marcus nodded. He picked up the receiver and dialed a number from memory. Not a lawyer, not family, not a friend, a secure emergency contact known by only a handful of senior personnel. The line connected after 2 rings. "Operations Command Watch Center," a voice answered. Marcus spoke calmly. "This is Commander Marcus Sterling. Authorization code Sierra 9 Zulu. I am being unlawfully detained in Iron Ridge County, Texas." Silence followed, then rapid keyboard clicks. The voice returned, noticeably different. "Commander Sterling, please confirm your status." "Detained, uniform damaged, identification ignored." Another pause. "Understood, sir. Stay where you are." The calm professional tone vanished. "We are initiating response procedures immediately." Marcus slowly hung up the phone. Brooks stared at him. "Who did you call?" Marcus looked toward the dark hallway beyond the booking desk. His expression never changed. "The people who don't appreciate having their commanders arrested." Brooks swallowed hard. For the first time since the arrest began, genuine fear appeared in his eyes. And somewhere hundreds of miles away, phones were already beginning to ring. The next morning arrived with blazing sunlight and suffocating heat. Iron Ridge looked unchanged from the outside. Pickup trucks rolled down Main Street. Farmers stopped for coffee. The gas station welcomed another day of travelers. Inside the sheriff's department, however, something felt different. The phone started ringing before sunrise. Dispatchers answered only to hear silence. Then another call came. And another. By 8 o'clock, Sheriff Harold Voss walked through the front doors, carrying coffee and a paper bag of breakfast sandwiches. Voss had ruled Iron Ridge County for nearly 20 years. He was respected by some, feared by many and questioned by almost nobody. "Morning," he grunted. Deputy Cole looked pleased with himself. "Quiet night, Sheriff. Picked up some guy pretending to be a Navy commander." Voss laughed. "Another one? Full uniform, medals, whole act. Don't you verify him?" Cole waved dismissively. "Didn't need to. Obvious fake." For the first time, Sheriff Voss frowned. "Did you run fingerprints?" The deputy hesitated. "Not yet." The sheriff's smile vanished. "You locked someone up overnight without confirming identity." Cole shrugged. "I was getting to it." Voss muttered something under his breath. "Bring him out." Minutes later, Marcus Sterling walked calmly into the booking area. Despite spending the night in a sweltering holding cell, he looked composed. His posture remained perfect. His eyes revealed nothing. Sheriff Voss studied him carefully. Years of experience told him something felt wrong. This wasn't how frightened suspects behaved. "What's your name?" Voss asked. "Commander Marcus Sterling, United States Navy." The answer came instantly. No hesitation, no uncertainty, just confidence. The sheriff turned toward Cole. "Run the prints. Now." Cole reluctantly led Marcus toward the fingerprint scanner. The machine beeped as each finger touched the glass. Everyone waited. Several deputies gathered nearby. The computer processed the information. Then something happened nobody in the room had ever seen. The monitor flashed bright red. A warning tone sounded through the speakers. A large message appeared across the screen. "Restricted federal identity. Authorized clearance required. Contact Department of Defense immediately. Do not detain." The room went silent. Deputy Cole stared at the monitor. "That's impossible." Sheriff Voss stepped closer. His face slowly drained of color. "What did you do?" Before Cole could answer, another sound interrupted. A telephone rang. Not the public line, not dispatch, the emergency line. Nobody moved. The phone continued ringing. Once, twice, 3 times. Finally, Sheriff Voss picked it up. Sheriff Voss speaking. The voice on the other end was calm, cold, powerful. "Sheriff Voss, this is Admiral Jonathan Hale, United States Navy." Every deputy in the room froze. The sheriff's grip tightened around the receiver. "Admiral, I understand Commander Marcus Sterling is currently in your custody." The question sounded less like a request and more like an accusation. "There appears to have been a misunderstanding," Voss said. "A misunderstanding?" The Admiral's voice sharpened. "My office has received reports that a decorated naval officer was unlawfully arrested, denied verification procedures, and had government-issued insignia damaged while in custody." No one spoke. No one breathed. "You have 5 minutes to release Commander Sterling and secure all evidence related to this incident." The Admiral paused. 5 minutes, Sheriff." The line disconnected. Voss lowered the receiver slowly. Deputy Cole suddenly looked far less confident. "Sheriff, Be quiet." The order came through clenched teeth. Marcus remained silent. He simply watched. The sheriff turned toward him. "Commander Sterling, you're free to go." Marcus rubbed his wrists. "I want my uniform returned." "Of course. I want every recording preserved." "Certainly." "And I want written confirmation that no evidence is altered." Voss nodded immediately. Deputies rushed to comply. The sudden transformation was remarkable. Less than 24 hours earlier, they had treated Marcus like a criminal. Now they acted as if he were visiting royalty. Yet Marcus noticed something else. The fear in the room wasn't coming from him, it was coming from outside. Then he heard it. A distant sound, low, rhythmic, growing louder. Rotor blades. Several deputies rushed toward the windows. A helicopter appeared over the town. Behind it came a convoy of black government vehicles moving down Main Street. Sheriff Voss stared through the glass. His expression turned from concern to panic. Marcus followed his gaze. 4 SUVs, military police vehicles, federal agents. The response team had arrived, and judging by the size of the convoy, they were interested in far more than a wrongful arrest. The helicopter descended toward the high school football field across from the sheriff's department. Dust exploded into the air, rattling windows throughout downtown Iron Ridge. Residents emerged from stores and restaurants, shielding their eyes as the aircraft settled onto the grass. Within minutes, the black SUVs rolled into the station parking lot. Nobody inside the building moved. Nobody knew what to expect. Sheriff Harold Voss stood frozen near the booking desk. Deputy Travis Cole looked as though he might be sick. Commander Marcus Sterling remained perfectly calm. He had expected this response. The front doors opened. Several federal agents entered first. Their expressions revealed nothing. Behind them walked a tall man wearing a Navy service uniform. His silver hair and sharp posture commanded immediate attention. Captain Daniel Reeves, Judge Advocate General's Corps, one of the Navy's most respected legal officers. Reeves crossed the room without hesitation. When he reached Marcus, he stopped, then rendered a flawless salute. "Commander Sterling, sir." Marcus returned the salute. "Good morning, Captain." The exchange alone sent shockwaves through the room. The deputies suddenly understood the magnitude of their mistake. This was not a man pretending to be someone important. This was someone important. Reeves turned toward Sheriff Voss. His expression hardened instantly. "Who is in charge of this department?" Voss stepped forward. "I am." The captain handed him several documents: federal authorization, preservation orders, evidence seizure notices. Voss stared at the paperwork. Evidence? Everything connected to Commander Sterling's detention. The sheriff's face tightened. "This seems excessive." A female FBI agent stepped beside Reeves, Special Agent Rebecca Torres. "Not from our perspective," she said. She said. "This incident now involves possible civil rights violations, destruction of federal property, false arrest, and obstruction of official procedures." Deputy Cole's confidence finally collapsed. It was a misunderstanding. Torres looked directly at him. "Then you have nothing to worry about." The response carried enough weight to silence him. Agents immediately spread through the building. Computers were secured. Body camera footage was preserved. Dispatch recordings were copied. The sheriff's department no longer felt like local territory. It felt occupied. Marcus quietly changed into a fresh uniform delivered by Navy personnel. As he adjusted his collar, Captain Reeves approached. "You all right?" "I've been through worse." Reeves nodded. The Admiral was furious. "I assumed so. Most people never cause a conference call between Washington and Texas before sunrise." For the first time since his arrest, Marcus smiled slightly. Then Agent Torres entered, carrying a tablet. Her expression was serious. "Commander, we found something unusual." Everyone gathered around. The screen displayed recovered patrol vehicle footage. Video recorded shortly before Marcus's arrest. Deputy Cole appeared behind the wheel. At first, nothing seemed remarkable. Then audio began playing. Cole was speaking on a phone, not the department radio. A private call. "There's a problem," Cole said in the recording. A distorted voice answered. "What kind of problem?" "Federal-looking officer at the gas station, uniform, high rank." Several agents exchanged glances. The recording continued. "Can he identify the shipment?" the voice asked. "Maybe. Keep him occupied. Delay him." A long pause followed. Then Cole answered. "Understood." The video ended. Silence filled the room. Marcus slowly folded his arms. "That wasn't about me." Torres nodded. "Exactly." Captain Reeves looked toward the evidence board. "He wasn't targeting you because of the uniform." "The uniform made me dangerous," Marcus said. The realization settled heavily over everyone present. The arrest had never been random. Someone had panicked. Someone had seen a decorated naval officer near the gas station and assumed federal authorities were closing in. Agent Torres tapped another file. "We're investigating the business connected to that station. Financial records don't add up. Neither do several fuel deliveries." Marcus thought about Deputy Cole's behavior, the aggression, the urgency, the refusal to verify identification. It suddenly made sense. They weren't protecting their authority, he said quietly. They were protecting something else. At that moment, a young deputy appeared in the doorway. Officer Ethan Brooks. He looked terrified. His hands trembled visibly. "I need to tell somebody the truth," he said. Every eye in the room turned toward him. Brooks swallowed hard, then looked directly at Sheriff Voss. The sheriff's expression changed immediately. Not anger, not surprise, fear. Real fear. And Marcus suddenly realized the corruption inside Iron Ridge ran far deeper than a single deputy's bad decision. Officer Ethan Brooks looked as though he had not slept in days. His uniform shirt was wrinkled. Sweat clung to his forehead despite the air conditioning. The young deputy stood frozen in the doorway while everyone watched. Sheriff Harold Voss immediately understood what was happening. "Brooks," he said carefully, "why don't we talk privately?" The rookie shook his head. "No, sir." The answer stunned the room. For years nobody challenged Voss publicly. Not deputies, not business owners, not elected officials. Yet here stood a 23-year-old officer refusing a direct request. Agent Rebecca Torres pulled out a chair. "Take a seat, Ethan." Brooks sat down slowly. His hands trembled as he wrapped them around a cup of water. Commander Marcus Sterling remained silent. He had spent decades leading men under pressure. He recognized the signs immediately. Brooks wasn't hiding information anymore. He was deciding whether to survive. "Tell us what happened," Torres said. The young deputy stared at the floor. For several seconds nobody spoke. Finally he lifted his head. The arrest wasn't about stolen valor. Every word seemed physically painful. Deputy Cole thought Commander Sterling was federal law enforcement. Captain Reeves exchanged a glance with Torres. "Go on." Brooks swallowed. There was supposed to be a delivery that afternoon. Sheriff Voss stood abruptly. "You need an attorney." "Sit down, Sheriff," Torres replied. The authority in her voice stopped him immediately. Brooks continued. "The gas station wasn't just a gas station. Trucks came through every month. Sometimes twice a month. Certain tankers arrived after dark. Nobody inspected them. Nobody asked questions." Marcus watched Voss carefully. The sheriff looked older with every passing second. "Who organized it?" Torres asked. Brooks closed his eyes. When he answered, his voice barely rose above a whisper. "Sheriff Voss." The room went silent. Outside, reporters were beginning to gather near the police tape surrounding the building. News of federal involvement had spread quickly. Inside, an empire was beginning to collapse. "Explain," Torres said. Brooks nodded. The sheriff controlled everything. The gas station owner worked with him. Certain fuel shipments weren't fuel shipments. Drugs mostly, sometimes weapons. The county roads were perfect because nobody paid attention to them. And Captain Reeves leaned forward. "And Deputy Cole?" "Enforcement." The answer came instantly. If someone asked questions, Cole handled it. Traffic stops, arrests, threats, whatever was necessary. Sheriff Voss slammed both hands against the table. "He's lying." No one reacted, not even Brooks. The young deputy seemed exhausted beyond fear. "You told me to stay quiet," Brooks said softly. The sheriff's face hardened. "Because you didn't understand what was happening." "I understand now." Those 4 words carried surprising weight. For the first time, Brooks sounded confident. Agent Torres opened a folder. Financial investigators already found irregular deposits tied to businesses connected to Iron Ridge County. She slid photographs across the table. Bank records, property transfers, vehicle registrations. The evidence looked overwhelming. Voss stared at the documents. His silence said more than any denial could. Marcus walked toward the window overlooking the parking lot. Federal agents continued loading boxes into SUVs. Years of corruption were leaving the building, one file at a time. He thought about his mentor's funeral. He should have been paying respects in Oak Haven. Instead, he was standing inside a criminal investigation. Life often ignored careful plans. Behind him, Brooks continued speaking. Deputy Cole received a call before the arrest. He thought Commander Sterling was there investigating the shipment. That's why he moved so fast. Marcus nodded slowly. Everything fit. The panic, the hostility, the desperation. Cole had not been protecting public safety. He had been protecting a business operation. Captain Reeves looked toward Torres. "Enough for conspiracy charges?" "More than enough." The agent closed the folder. "Assuming we can verify everything." At that exact moment, another federal investigator entered carrying a sealed evidence box. His expression was grim. "We found something in the gas station office." Everyone turned. The investigator placed an old leather ledger on the table. Names, dates, payments, shipment schedules, years of records. Sheriff Voss stared at the book as if he had seen a ghost. Marcus noticed the reaction immediately. The sheriff wasn't surprised the ledger existed. He was surprised someone else had found it. And in that single moment, everyone in the room understood the same thing. The evidence box contained enough information to destroy far more than a county sheriff. The ledger changed everything. For nearly an hour, federal investigators reviewed page after page of handwritten records. Every shipment was documented with obsessive detail. Dates, license plates, payment amounts, delivery routes. Initials beside names. What first appeared to be bookkeeping quickly revealed something far more dangerous. This was not a local operation. It was part of a network. Commander Marcus Sterling stood beside Agent Rebecca Torres as analysts photographed each page. "How far back does it go?" he asked. "Almost 12 years, Torres replied. Marcus exhaled slowly. 12 years of corruption, 12 years of intimidation, 12 years of people looking away. Across the room, Sheriff Harold Voss sat under federal supervision. His shoulders had collapsed inward. The powerful man who once controlled Iron Ridge now looked exhausted and frightened. Yet Marcus noticed something unusual. Voss wasn't worried about prison, he was worried about someone else. The sheriff kept glancing toward the windows, toward the road, toward the outside world, as if expecting someone to arrive. Captain Daniel Reeves noticed it too. "He's scared," Reeves said quietly. "Not of us," Marcus answered. The realization settled heavily between them. If Voss feared another person more than federal prison, then someone larger stood above him. Someone powerful, someone dangerous. At noon, investigators began matching names from the ledger against state and federal databases. The results were alarming. Several companies existed only on paper. 3 trucking firms had no registered employees. Multiple payments linked to shell corporations in Houston and Phoenix. One company shared a mailing address with a warehouse currently under federal investigation. The corruption extended far beyond Iron Ridge. Agent Torres received a phone call. Her expression darkened immediately. "What happened?" Marcus asked. She lowered the phone. "The owner of the gas station disappeared last night." The room became quiet. "Missing?" Reeves asked. "Vanished." Marcus felt a knot tighten in his stomach. Witnesses rarely disappeared by accident, especially when federal investigations began uncovering financial records. Before anyone could respond, another agent entered carrying new evidence. This time, it wasn't paperwork. It was a laptop recovered from a hidden compartment beneath the gas station office. The device had been professionally encrypted, which immediately made it valuable. Federal technicians worked for hours. Late that afternoon, they finally gained access. Everyone gathered around the monitor. Thousands of files filled the screen: financial records, shipping manifests, photographs, emails. Then investigators opened a folder labeled Consultants. Inside were dozens of scanned contracts. Marcus studied the names. One stood out immediately: State Senator Charles Whitmore, Texas. A powerful political figure, a frequent television guest. A man publicly known for supporting law enforcement and anti-crime initiatives. The room fell silent. "You've got to be kidding," Reeves whispered. Agent Torres looked stunned. "If these records are legitimate, this operation had political protection." Marcus stared at the screen. The implications were enormous. This was no longer a county corruption case. This was becoming a statewide scandal. Meanwhile, reporters continued gathering outside. Satellite trucks lined nearby streets. National media outlets had arrived. The story of a decorated naval commander wrongfully arrested had already captured public attention. Nobody yet understood the larger story hiding beneath it. Back inside the station, Sheriff Voss finally requested to speak. "I want a deal," he said. Torres crossed her arms. "You're not negotiating from a position of strength. You don't understand." The sheriff's voice cracked. "The people behind this won't let me testify." Marcus stepped forward. "Then tell us who they are." Voss hesitated. For several long seconds, nobody moved. The sheriff looked toward the evidence table, toward the ledger, toward the laptop, toward the ruined life unfolding around him. Finally, he spoke. "This operation doesn't belong to Iron Ridge." The room froze. "It belongs to a group based in Houston." Agent Torres activated a recorder. "Names." Voss swallowed hard. Then he began talking. Every sentence exposed another layer of corruption. Every name widened the investigation. Every detail pulled powerful people closer to disaster. When he finally finished, nobody in the room spoke, because the list included judges, business executives, political donors, and one current member of Congress. Commander Marcus Sterling slowly looked away from the recorder. The wrongful arrest that began at a gas station was no longer the central story. It had become the thread that could unravel an entire criminal network stretching across Texas. And somewhere beyond Iron Ridge, people with influence, money, and power were about to learn that their secrets were no longer safe. Within 48 hours, the investigation expanded beyond anything federal authorities had originally imagined. Search warrants were executed across Houston, Dallas, and several smaller communities connected to names found inside Sheriff Harold Voss's records. Financial crimes teams worked around the clock. Analysts compared transactions. Prosecutors built timelines. Agents followed money trails stretching through dozens of businesses. Commander Marcus Sterling finally reached Oak Haven to attend Master Chief Robert Langford's memorial service. The funeral took place beneath gray skies. A cool wind moved through rows of white headstones. Navy personnel stood in perfect formation. Families gathered quietly. The atmosphere carried a dignity that words could never fully capture. Marcus stood beside the grave, listening to the ceremonial rifle salute. For a few precious moments, the investigation disappeared. The corruption, the arrests, the media attention, none of it mattered. Only the memory of a good man remained. After the ceremony ended, Marcus stayed behind. He stared at the polished granite marker. "You always told me integrity costs something," he said softly. The wind rustled nearby trees. "Turns out you were right again." His phone vibrated. The moment ended. Reality returned. Agent Rebecca Torres was calling. Marcus answered immediately. "What's happened?" The silence on the other end lasted several seconds. "We lost a witness." Marcus closed his eyes. "Which one?" "The gas station owner." The answer hit like a punch. The missing businessman had been located, dead. His body had been discovered inside an abandoned warehouse outside Houston. Authorities immediately ruled the death suspicious. The timing was impossible to ignore. Someone was cleaning up loose ends. Marcus looked back toward Langford's grave. The old Master Chief had survived combat zones only to die peacefully among family and friends. And others weren't receiving the same mercy. Who found him? Marcus asked. Local police. Any leads? Nothing solid yet. Marcus stared at the horizon. He knew what the murder meant. Pressure, fear, desperation. The organization behind the corruption was beginning to panic. Panicked organizations made mistakes, but they also became dangerous. The following week brought another development. Federal prosecutors officially charged Sheriff Voss, Deputy Travis Cole, and multiple associates. News coverage exploded nationwide. Television analysts debated law enforcement accountability. Political commentators argued over corruption. Social media transformed the story into a national conversation. At the center of it all stood Marcus Sterling, a man who never wanted public attention. Reporters requested interviews daily. Television producers offered exclusive appearances. Marcus declined them all. He preferred facts to headlines. Unfortunately, headlines had other plans. One evening, Captain Daniel Reeves arrived at Marcus's temporary residence in Houston. The legal officer looked troubled. "You need to see this." He handed Marcus a tablet. A news program filled the screen. The guest being interviewed was Senator Charles Whitmore, the same politician whose name appeared inside the recovered files. Whitmore denied everything. Then he did something unexpected. He attacked Marcus directly. "Commander Sterling's account contains inconsistencies," Whitmore said. "People should remember that military service does not place someone above scrutiny." Marcus watched silently. The senator continued, "We should avoid rushing to conclusions based on emotional reactions." The interview ended. Reeves looked furious. "He's trying to discredit you before the trial." Marcus handed back the tablet. "That means he's worried." The captain nodded. "Probably." But Marcus wasn't entirely convinced. Experienced politicians rarely acted from fear alone. They acted from strategy, and Whitmore had just made his first public move. 3 days later, Marcus received confirmation that he would testify during the federal proceedings. The courtroom battle was approaching. Defense attorneys were assembling powerful legal teams. Political figures were distancing themselves from former associates. Journalists were uncovering new connections every week. The entire case was becoming larger than anyone expected. Then another surprise arrived. Late one evening, a secure package was delivered to Marcus's hotel. No return address, no identifying information. Inside sat a flash drive. Attached was a handwritten note, only 7 words. "The senator isn't the top layer." Marcus immediately contacted federal investigators. The flash drive was analyzed within hours. What they discovered left even veteran agents speechless, because the files suggested the corruption network extended beyond Texas, far beyond Texas. And the names appearing in those documents included people nobody expected to see. The flash drive changed the direction of the entire investigation. Federal analysts worked through the night inside a secured facility in Houston. Every file was copied, verified, and examined. By sunrise, investigators understood why someone had risked everything to send it. The information exposed connections extending far beyond Texas. Shell companies operated in multiple states. Money moved through legitimate businesses before disappearing into offshore accounts. Transportation firms in Phoenix, Chicago, and Atlanta appeared repeatedly throughout the records. This was not a regional criminal enterprise. It was national. Commander Marcus Sterling arrived at the Federal Task Force headquarters shortly after dawn. The atmosphere felt tense. No one joked. No one wasted time. Captain Daniel Reeves met him at the entrance. "You need to see this immediately." Inside the operations center, large monitors displayed maps covered with financial transactions and communication links. Agent Rebecca Torres stood beside a wall of photographs. Business executives, lobbyists, political consultants, transportation contractors. The network resembled a spider web. Every thread led somewhere important. The senator wasn't running the organization, Torres explained. He was benefiting from it. Marcus studied the board. "Who's at the center?" Torres pointed toward a photograph. A distinguished-looking businessman in his 60s. Nathan Caldwell, chairman of one of the largest logistics corporations in the Southwest. Publicly, Caldwell was celebrated as a philanthropist and entrepreneur. Privately, the evidence suggested something very different. His companies control freight routes across multiple states, Torres said. The records indicate illegal shipments moved through legitimate transportation channels. Marcus nodded slowly. The structure made sense. A criminal operation survived by hiding inside ordinary systems. People ignored what looked familiar. That blindness had protected Caldwell for years. A prosecutor entered the room carrying new documents. His expression revealed concern. "We have another problem." The room became silent. "What now?" Reeves asked. "Several witnesses are refusing to testify." Nobody seemed surprised. Fear was spreading. The deeper the investigation reached, the more dangerous cooperation became. Some witnesses worried about their careers, others worried about their families. A few simply disappeared. Marcus understood their fear. Courage sounded noble until real consequences arrived. Then courage became expensive. That afternoon, federal prosecutors informed Marcus that his testimony date had been finalized. The courtroom proceedings would begin within days. National news networks announced special coverage. Legal analysts predicted one of the most significant corruption trials in modern Texas history. Meanwhile, Senator Charles Whitmore intensified his media campaign. Every interview carried the same message: doubt, questions, uncertainty. He rarely attacked evidence directly. Instead, he attacked credibility. It was a smarter strategy. Confuse people long enough, and truth became harder to recognize. Late that evening, Marcus sat alone in his hotel room, reviewing case materials. Rain tapped softly against the windows. Houston's skyline glowed beneath low clouds. The city seemed restless. His phone rang. Unknown number. Marcus answered. No one spoke immediately, only breathing. Then a man's voice emerged, calm, controlled. "Commander Sterling." Marcus remained silent. "You've caused a great deal of trouble." The voice sounded familiar. Not because Marcus recognized it, because he had heard similar voices throughout his career. Confident men who believed power made them untouchable. "Who is this?" Marcus asked. A brief laugh followed. "Someone offering advice." The caller paused. "Walk away from the trial." Marcus looked out at the rain-covered city. "That's not happening." Another pause, longer this time. "Think carefully." The line disconnected. Marcus immediately reported the call. Federal investigators traced the number. Predictably, it led nowhere. A disposable phone, another dead end. Or so it appeared. The next morning, Agent Torres arrived carrying fresh forensic results. The voice sample had been enhanced, compared against hundreds of recordings. One match emerged, not definitive, but extremely close. Marcus read the report. His expression hardened, because the voice belonged neither to Senator Whitmore nor Nathan Caldwell. It belonged to someone completely unexpected, someone already involved in the investigation, someone with direct access to confidential information, someone inside the federal task force itself. For the first time since the arrest at the gas station, Marcus realized the enemy might already be standing inside the same rooms as the people trying to stop them. The revelation struck the task force like a lightning bolt. Someone inside the investigation had warned Marcus Sterling to back away. Someone with access to confidential evidence. Someone trusted. The discovery threatened everything. For months, federal agents had followed procedures, protected witnesses, and built a case capable of dismantling a powerful criminal network. If an insider existed, every operation could already be compromised. Agent Rebecca Torres locked down access to sensitive files immediately. Passwords changed, communication channels were restricted, internal audits began. No one complained. Everyone understood the stakes. Commander Marcus Sterling watched the tension spread through headquarters. Trust, once broken, was difficult to rebuild, especially among investigators. Captain Daniel Reeves joined him in a conference room overlooking downtown Houston. The city lights flickered beneath storm clouds. "Any theories?" Reeves asked. Marcus considered the question. "Not yet." "You think the voice analysis is accurate?" Marcus nodded. "Accurate enough to concern me." That evening, task force leadership quietly reviewed personnel records, background checks, financial disclosures, travel histories. One file quickly attracted attention: Special Agent Leonard Grayson, 20 years of federal service. Excellent performance reviews. No disciplinary history, nothing unusual. Until investigators examined recent financial activity, several unexplained deposits had appeared over the previous 18 months. The amounts were carefully structured, small enough to avoid immediate suspicion, large enough to matter. Torres stared at the report. This can't be coincidence. By midnight, surveillance teams were monitoring Grayson. The veteran agent appeared unaware. He left headquarters shortly after 10, drove to a restaurant, met with no one, returned home. Everything looked ordinary, almost too ordinary. Meanwhile, national attention surrounding the upcoming trial continued growing. News programs discussed witness intimidation. Editorials demanded accountability. Public confidence in local institutions continued eroding. The story had evolved beyond Iron Ridge. It now represented a broader question. Could powerful people still be held accountable when corruption reached deep enough? The trial opened 3 days later. The federal courthouse in Houston overflowed with reporters, attorneys, and observers. Security checkpoints stretched through multiple hallways. Every seat inside the courtroom filled early. Sheriff Harold Voss entered wearing a prison uniform. Deputy Travis Cole followed. Neither looked anything like the men who once controlled Iron Ridge. Years of arrogance had vanished. Fear remained. Marcus sat quietly behind prosecutors. He ignored cameras, ignored reporters, ignored whispers. His focus remained fixed on the proceedings. Opening statements lasted most of the day. Federal prosecutors presented a sweeping picture of corruption, trafficking, intimidation, and abuse of power. Defense attorneys countered aggressively. They challenged evidence, questioned witnesses, suggested political motivations. Nothing unexpected. Then came a surprise. Late that afternoon, a court officer approached the prosecution table. A sealed envelope had arrived. No return address, no identifying information. The contents were immediately reviewed by the judge. Her expression changed. Then she called attorneys forward. A private conference followed. The courtroom buzzed with speculation. Marcus remained seated. Something significant had happened. He could feel it. Minutes later, the judge returned. Her face looked unusually serious. "Court will recess until tomorrow morning," she announced. Confusion spread through the room. The schedule showed no recess. Something had forced the change. Outside the courtroom, Agent Torres finally approached Marcus. The envelope contained evidence. From who? "We don't know." She handed him a summary report. Marcus read silently. His eyes narrowed. The documents inside the envelope proved that Special Agent Leonard Grayson had accepted payments from intermediaries connected to Nathan Caldwell. The insider had been identified. But that wasn't the shocking part. The truly shocking part appeared near the bottom of the report. According to newly submitted financial records, Grayson had not been working for Caldwell. He had been reporting to someone else. Someone whose name had never appeared in the investigation. Someone powerful enough to remain invisible while everyone else fell. As Marcus reached the final page, he felt a chill despite the crowded hallway. The hidden figure financing the entire operation was not a businessman, not a senator, not a law enforcement official. It was a sitting governor. And by sunrise, the most powerful political scandal in state history would explode into public view. By sunrise, every major news network in America was broadcasting the same story. The corruption investigation that began with a wrongful arrest at a Texas gas station had reached the governor's office. Television anchors spoke in stunned tones. Political analysts struggled to explain the scale of the scandal. Federal prosecutors remained cautious. Evidence still required verification. Facts still mattered. But one reality had become impossible to ignore. The network exposed through Iron Ridge stretched into the highest levels of power. Inside the Houston federal courthouse, security reached unprecedented levels. Additional federal marshals guarded entrances. Reporters filled every available space. The atmosphere felt less like a trial and more like a historical event. Commander Marcus Sterling arrived before dawn. He walked through quiet hallways, carrying none of the excitement surrounding the case. For him, the story had never been about politics. It had never been about headlines. It had always been about accountability. A uniform had been disrespected. Authority had been abused. Ordinary people had suffered while powerful individuals enriched themselves. Everything else was simply consequence. When court resumed, prosecutors revealed the newly discovered evidence: financial records, encrypted communications, witness statements. The chain connecting the criminal network to senior political figures became impossible to dismiss. Defense attorneys fought aggressively. Objections echoed throughout the courtroom. Arguments stretched for hours. But the evidence continued growing. Piece by piece, document by document. Truth moved forward. Then came the moment everyone remembered. Commander Marcus Sterling took the witness stand. The courtroom became silent. No cameras were allowed inside. No dramatic music played. Only a man speaking honestly under oath. Marcus described the events at the gas station, the unlawful arrest, the damaged insignia, the refusal to verify identification, the intimidation, the corruption. His testimony lasted nearly 3 hours. Throughout it all, he remained calm, measured, respectful. He spoke not as a victim, but as a citizen who believed institutions mattered. Near the end, a defense attorney asked one final question. "Commander Sterling, after everything you've experienced, do you still trust the system?" The courtroom waited. Marcus looked toward the jury, then toward the judge, finally toward the spectators filling the gallery. "The system isn't buildings," he said. "It isn't titles. It isn't uniforms." He paused. "It's people." The room remained silent. Sometimes people fail, sometimes they become selfish, sometimes they become corrupt, but every generation gets a choice. Ignore those failures or confront them. Marcus folded his hands. The system works only when good people decide it matters. No one interrupted, no one objected. The words hung in the air long after he finished speaking. Several weeks later, the verdicts arrived. Guilty. On every major charge, Sheriff Harold Voss received multiple life sentences. Deputy Travis Cole received decades in federal prison. Business executives, intermediaries, and corrupt officials followed. Additional investigations continued for months. Several political careers ended, others faced prosecution. The network that once seemed untouchable collapsed beneath the weight of its own secrets. Yet the most important moment came far from any courtroom. Months later, Marcus returned to Oak Haven Veterans Cemetery. Autumn leaves covered the ground. The air felt cool and peaceful. He stood once again before Master Chief Robert Langford's grave. This time, there were no reporters, no federal agents, no cameras, only silence. Marcus placed a hand on the headstone. "You taught me that character is what remains when nobody is watching." A gentle breeze moved through the trees. "I finally understand what you meant." He stood there for several minutes, thinking, remembering, reflecting. The scandal would eventually fade from headlines, trials would end, careers would be forgotten, but principles endured. Integrity endured, service endured, and sometimes, when enough people chose courage over comfort, justice endured too. Marcus rendered one final salute. Then he turned and walked toward his car. The sun was setting behind the hills. For the first time in many months, the road ahead felt peaceful. The uniform remained clean, the truth had survived, and a small town's attempt to bury a lie had instead exposed an entire empire of corruption. Subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, and share this video.